around the world to be able to really showcase what we have to offer here at this conference, and also inspire young professionals to incorporate international business into their careers. Let's dissect this theme a little bit: how to become a global citizen. So really, these are some of the aspects that I see are important to say that you are a global citizen. One is, my favorite one is really celebrating diversity of thought, not just diversity of race or ethnicity, but really diversity of thought. Every time I travel, and I've been to, I don't know, 60 plus countries, and I hope to grow that. I hope to double that before my lifetime ends. But I really do think that I try to pick up one thing, at least one thing, maybe probably 20 things that I can learn from that culture. And what can we do better here in the United States that maybe they do really well? And if you go into building your global citizenship as having an open mind, willing to learn from others, accepting others' point of view and accepting others' way to process things, I think you'll be well on your way. And of course, the more you can explore, the better you'll be at this. But I think you can even have a global mindset even here in Colorado when you're meeting with other international visitors or immigrants or refugees that maybe come through our state. Be sure to reach out and get to know them as well. Let me tell you a little bit about my personal journey and how I got into international business as a career. There's this great organization you should check out called ISEC. It's a French acronym that stands for the International Association of Students in Economics and Business. But you'll find more about it at isecus.org. ISEC is an international student exchange program. It's completely student run. And I got to experience multiple cultures in Colorado by joining ISEC. There were probably 20 students from all over the world working here in our state, and I got to know them very well. And so that multicultural experience was life-changing for me. It also provided me the opportunity to take a traineeship right after college. And my job was working in a 900-person sawmill in Ghana, West Africa. I could never have dreamed of a better assignment for me. So it was fantastic to have that sort of experience, an immersion experience in country. I was paid, it was a paid internship, and I was there for 2 years. So highly recommend this organization. And then from there, I was able to come back to the States. So I went from running a sawmill to planning soirees at the Colorado International Trade Office. My job there was the chief of protocol, and I used to host about 500 incoming delegations throughout my years there, and even including the Emperor and Empress of Japan and the G8 when it was here in Denver. So I had the wonderful opportunity to meet several heads of states, ambassadors, and many others. I've also worked in the private sector globally and lived in Vienna, Austria, running a Science Institute's information office. So lots of great international career that brought me to where I am today at the World Trade Center, and I've been here about 11 years as president. So highly recommend an international career, but it starts with understanding multiple cultures. So let's go into why trade is so important to us and why it matters to us as students. First off, if you just look at the US, there's over $41 million jobs that have been created because of trade. Trade over the past decade, minus COVID, before COVID, really was raising about 50%, especially to our two greatest destinations of Canada and Mexico. And you're going to hear from the Canadian Consul General a little bit later. Also, if you think about our farms, 1 in 3 acres of farms are actually planted for export. And so many people don't really realize that how important agriculture is to our state for exports. Here's one other stat that you should know. 1 in 5 jobs come about because of trade. So if you think about getting your job right after college, you're actually probably, most of you will be thinking about how can I build this international career? Well, know that trade is helping those jobs thrive. So, and usually export or import related jobs or trade related jobs are quite lucrative too in terms of salaries. So I would definitely look out for, even if you can't find an international job right out of college, find a company that actually does international business so you have a good chance to move into that role. All right, so for Colorado, we have almost $23 billion of new money coming from outside of the country into our state. That's because we export services and goods. And so anytime you're exporting, we're getting brand new money from other countries into our economy. So it boosts our economy, it boosts our jobs, et cetera. One thing I wanted to mention is that 42% of all of our exports are going to free trade agreement markets. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. So in our top markets for Colorado are Canada, Mexico, and China. And so important to really not to overlook our neighbors in terms of the importance of trade for our state. 85% of our companies that are trading are in that small to mid-size realm. So it doesn't have to be the large companies only that trade. Here's a slide I wanted to share with you. 95% or 94% of the population lives outside of the United States. And yet 75% of the purchasing power lives outside of the United States. So, but very few companies are looking beyond the United States to trade, very few US companies. We rely heavily on being the #1 economy and a strong domestic market. But to be honest, we are not taking advantage of our full potential, and we're not competing on the global stage like other countries do. And so I really would encourage, if you're looking to start a business or looking to join a business, try to encourage them to think beyond our borders. Because look, half of our exports are going to 20 countries, and those are the ones that we have free trade agreements with. And so it's important to look at the countries that we trade very well with, and we have great relationships over many decades to enhance trade. That's a great opportunity to start your international business. We are not at the top of our game though when it comes to the United States. I'd like to say that we are, being the #1 economy, we're also incredible on the global market. I think actually a lot of other countries are surpassing us in this way. First off, let me just look at the number of free trade agreements. The United States has 20 countries that we have free trade agreements with. But look at Chile, look at Mexico. They're far beyond what we have. I know they might be smaller markets, but in fact, they're engaging into the global business marketplace instead of pulling back and isolating. It's important to compete on the global stage. It makes us all better. It makes us all more innovative to compete on the global stage. And you're going to hear a lot about that today from our speakers. I do want to point out that China and the ASEAN region have entered into RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, making that the #1 free trade bloc now in the world. It used to be the NAFTA bloc, now it's no longer. And so if we don't engage in globalization and engage in the global marketplace, we will be left behind and our economy will no longer be #1. This is my opinion, but I feel like I might be in tune with a number of economists on that. So you may disagree. All right, we have COVID now, changes the entire game of trade. Matter of fact, our trade went down the first 2 quarters of COVID, down like 25%. But in China, it went up 35%. And so really they have positioned themselves well to engage in that global marketplace and really fine tune their supply chain. Yes, we all saw disruptions, and that talks about some of the global trends that we've seen since COVID. There's been a lot of supply chain disruptions. We all know about that. And the other thing is that companies are having to duplicate and also figure out new suppliers that they can purchase from because of the supply chain disruptions. Now, why are the supply chain disruptions happening? Of course, some of the plants in Asia did need to close because of COVID temporarily or even permanently. But then we also have had labor shortages since then, and there's been a number of shortages and pileups at our ports, even domestically. So also the rising costs of containers are enormous. It's gone from $2,000 upwards of $10,000 to $20,000, depending on when you need the container by. So that's adding a lot of costs to our manufacturers. Of course, we're all relying more on digital tools like Zoom to keep us connected globally. But that's really important for those companies that couldn't go to trade shows this year because of COVID. So when you go to trade shows as a company, you really need to, you really want to set up new business and find new distributors. And when you can't do that, you have to find other means. And I think when we're thrown challenges like COVID, we actually get to be more innovative. Of course, we hear about reshoring, bringing manufacturing back to the US, especially in the PPE equipment area. But in fact, companies are starting to now nearshore as well. So think about maybe bringing some of the production in China over to Mexico in the same time zone, a lot easier to communicate with. And so that's definitely a trend that we're seeing. Also, I think some new free trade agreements that we'll see on our horizon are probably with the UK, hopefully with the EU, and certainly Japan is another one that that's been talked about. And I do hope that President Biden will consider maybe re-entering the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but that's a bigger, more complicated decision. So. One good news about recessions is that it does create more traders. People are looking for new ways to sell their products. And so they are going to be more exporters from COVID. Now, let me shift gears and tell you a little bit about the World Trade Center. And I think the best way to do that is to show you just a quick short video.
We are the rallying cry around trade and why it matters and why it's important.
People don't realize that Denver has a strong international community, and I think World Trade Center really brings it together.
You trade first with someone that you get to know and like. So it's those relationships that turn into business partnerships, that turn into friendships that we cherish around world trade. And so it is really important for us to continue those friendships and to show that Colorado is open and accessible, as is the US market for business.
It has been a beautiful journey. I have been living here for almost 20 years, and every year I grow as a person, I grow as a citizen, I grow as someone who has big dreams.
30 years ago, the World Trade Center Denver was formed. At that time, in 1987, we were exporting about $1.4 billion. Today, 30 years later, $20 billion of our economy is made up from global trade, just on the export side.
Anytime you're moving things across borders, you're gonna have some obstacles. Some of those are legal, some of them are regulatory, labor.
Oh, crap.
Laws, so your employees are gonna have different rules. Taxation becomes a problem because different countries tax income differently. So the World Trade Center does a lot to help businesses understand what those hurdles are to international trade.
Another thing they do is they have a great education program at the Institute that actually certifies people in international trade.
We've been helping companies from 5 to 5,000 people grow globally, make new connections, open new markets, and celebrate new friendships and relationships across the world.
So that's how I see trade moving, is increasingly connected, increasingly diverse, and increasingly focused on solving social problems, not at the expense of the bottom line, but in cooperation with enhancing the bottom line.
So it brings the world closer together, and it really facilitates peace. So there's not big, long, sustained wars or efforts because you can't afford the disruption in supply chain.
Trade is not just this exchange of merchandise and services and knowledge. Trades can bring connections. Trades can help us relate to one another. Trade can help us accept one another and live through peace, harmony, and dignity.
Trade has done more to reduce global poverty than probably any other effort in the history of mankind. That's a good thing.
If you teach someone how to trade, then you're teaching them a skill that will get them out of poverty.
Through trade, through cooperation, through diplomacy, we can solve any problem. I just want to be part of the people who are igniting positively that flame and back up and let the other generation take it away.
We can enhance environmental protection. We can enhance workers' rights. We can make the world a more prosperous place. We reduce global poverty all through trade.
I hope one day I can sit and say, I was part of this. Because life is short. The story will be forever.
So I hope that gives you an idea of why I come to work every day. I love that trade actually connects us globally and also can help the world, can help both parties rise all tides. So, we had some wonderful accomplishments in the past year. We've served several thousand companies. We have over 330 corporate members of our organization. We are a nonprofit organization, the World Trade Center. We also serve a number of student members, and so we'll talk to you a little bit about that opportunity. We also serve 70 immigrant and refugees in helping to build their first business that's in global trade. So we also launched an accelerator for Colorado companies looking to scale globally through COVID. So this is our vision. We really are the organization at the center of the global business community. And we do want to make Denver and the Denver metro area a much more globally conscious place. Here's some ways you can engage in the World Trade Center as a student. You can become a member for just $100 a year. That unlocks a discount of 50% off of even our member rate to everything we do. You can join our next gen interest group, which is really called the Global Young Leaders in Dialogue, or GUILD. We partner up with various international organizations throughout Denver, and we bring our young professionals together in one setting. You can pursue your Certificate of International Trade, which is a really great practical-based learning that we offer at the World Trade Center. It equates to about 10 to 12 courses or 48 hours of trade education that you can act as your elective in university and really give yourself practical learning education about how to do international business. And then you can also even assist one of our entrepreneurs through a student assistant program. One last way is you can become an intern for us at the World Trade Center, and all of the above will be free. So consider joining our organization and becoming an intern here. Let me just close with a quick, really great new development that we're pursuing for the World Trade Center. It's called Fox Park. We're actually building a new campus for World Trade Center. It's privately developed, not by us, but we are going to be the namesake tenant. And it's right at I-70 and I-25, so you can just feel the vibrant energy around us with the train stop there at 41st and Fox, and then I-70 and I-25 all around us. Great view of the city, and you can experience really an incredible destination. This is actually what it's going to be looking like once it's developed. So it's the old Denver Post printing press, if you're familiar with the area, The World Trade Center is over here on the right. There'll be a hotel, corporate offices, and about 4,000 residences. So great place to consider moving once those are built. Also, it'll be vibrant community gathering place. It'll be a business center for all things international, welcoming international investment into our state, into our city, and connecting them with business opportunities. So lots of things are going to happen here, including a cultural arts center, performing arts center, international expo, international restaurants, and retail. So it's really an exciting new future for our organization and for the city of Denver. So this is how you get a hold of me. And I hope you'll connect with me on LinkedIn or on Facebook. And not too great on Instagram, I got to be honest. But I really appreciate your time and attention today.